Hi, thanks for joining me. Okay, I didn't want to make a video about this record, but here it goes. This is the Analogue Productions ultra high quality record reissue of the famous Kinda Blue by Miles Davis. This thing is Chad Kassem and Analogue Productions ultimate reissue to end all Kinda Blue reissues. It was announced, I think, last May, maybe even earlier, to a lot of fanfare. I'll get into that in just a second. But this is their ultimate reissue. They got the gatefold cover. It's hand pressed on an all manual, fine built press on the special Analogue Productions Clarity vinyl, which is the intellectual property that they acquired when they bought Michael Hobson's defunct Classic Records and all of its assets. Before I get into the record, I just want to talk about the reissue campaign for a second, and specifically what we know must be true based on how it came out. And that's, there's just no getting around the fact that Chad Kassem really cared about doing the ultimate here, getting this right. If you're into Miles at all, you know that the authority on Kinda Blue and its recording and its just the whole shebang is Ashley Kahn. So, what are you going to do but have Ashley Kahn write a whole new, booklet for this with pictures, and it talks about the history of the record. It talks about the history of classic records and how this particular mastering was made. Again, more about that in a minute, but just wait. And now let's get down to the jacket itself. There's nice touches. It's numbered in gold foil, but I want you to see something here, and I'm gonna just show you for comparison. Here, okay, I got an original here. This is the original stereo promo copy. Let's just do a side-by-side of the album covers. They're so close. The main differences really are that Cannonball Adderley's name is misspelled, Adderley, on not just the early Kinda Blue covers, but kind of all of them through the 70s. And they went ahead and they corrected that on the new one. I think that's good. The only tiny detail, and I wonder if even you obsessive types like me have noticed this. I'll give you a chance to spot it here. I'll even narrow it down. There's a little black hole in the center of the original Columbia logo that is missing. It's like someone forgot to re-add a layer on Illustrator to make it black in the center. And curiously, they did it right on the back. That's like, that's a small detail. Let's look at a detail they did get right. Again, if you spend a ridiculous amount of time with this record, you may have noticed that the back of the jacket has a really peculiar spacing with after the name of the player of the instrument. So it's got Miles Davis, trumpet, and Julian Adderley, alto saxophone. With Wynton Kelly, there's like a weird amount of space here, like 2 spaces or 3 spaces. They replicated it down to that level. So this is not something you do when you don't care a lot. Someone had to be told, I want you to make an exact replica, and I mean exact replica of that cover. And that's what we get. There's cool pictures on the inside of the gatefold. Nice touch. Okay, this is kind of becoming industry standard now. And, in my last video or a couple of videos ago, I mentioned like, oh, this is like the Music Matters deal. Chad was doing these before with Analogue Productions. Little Girl Blues got a gatefold, Dave Brubeck timeout. So I don't know who the first to do it was. It may have been Ron back at Music Matters, but Chad's not like a Johnny come lately with these gatefolds. So the record itself, where did I put it? Hold on, let me get organized again. The record on Clarity Vinyl. Okay, this isn't just your average, remaster from the original analog tapes. I mean, it kind of is and kind of isn't, but there's a real weird history going on here. So there's a lot of lore about Kind of Blue, and a lot of legends and tales that are told, and some of them are bullshit. And I think even some of the bullshit ones have made it into some of Ashley Kahn stuff. I'm not trying to start a fight here. That guy knows his stuff, and I've learned so much from reading his books. But as he tells it, the original recording was made by simultaneously running a 3-track tape recorder, and then actually 2 of those. So a 3-track tape recorder to make the stereo master, a backup 3-track recorder, and then a separate mono recorder that was used to make the mono master. And then the mono master tapes have been lost. So, I read that. I figured Ashley Kahn did his homework. Oh, I know he did his homework, but I figured, that guy's the expert. So, if he says so, I believe it. Now, interestingly, and I tried to find the thread, but just some rando person reached out to me on the Steve Hoffman forums a few years back and said, hey, do you have, you seem to talk a lot about Kind of Blue, and you're interested in it, and you're always looking to pick up a new copy. Do you have an original mono copy? And I said, well, yeah, I do. I got lots of copies. What do you want? You want the original mono promo? My favorite one is the original Canadian mono pressing from 1959. And do you have an original stereo? Yeah, what do you want? You want the US stereo? You want the Canada stereo? I don't recommend that at all. Do you want the original Japanese stereo promo? Let me know. What do you have in mind here? And this person said, do me a favor and record So What, and tell me how much time elapses from basically 2 points in this. I think it was from the crash on Jimmy Cobb's Orion symbol to the end of a part of Miles Davis's solo. And so I did, and the times were the same. And that's not supposed to be true. We were running 2 separate setups for mono and stereo because it turned out later, and I think it was found by the team that put this Classic Records reissue together originally, this mastering that Chad Kassem used for the UHQR, that the tape speed was wrong on the main tape for Kind of Blue. So the tape was running slow, so that means, I think this is how it works out, that the album is a little bit fast. But that shouldn't have affected a mono setup, right? So they should be different. But I'm pretty sure I did this, and I'm pretty sure they're the same. So make what you will of that. The point is, this thing got put down to a 3-track tape. And the engineer, Fred Plout, did, he had a left channel, a center channel, and a right channel, and ran one of them through an echo chamber. And there's a lot of destructive editing that can't be undone now. And so it kind of is what it is. But in order to get mastered, it had to be reduced from 3 channels to 2. And so, that was done by Columbia Records, and they put out Kind of Blue, and it became the smash hit, and the rest is history. The kind of hot reissue of Kind of Blue, audiophile reissue before this, was the Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, but they didn't go from the original master tapes. They went from a mixdown. So the interesting thing about this particular reissue, and this is important, is that according to Michael Hobson, who was the person who supervised this originally, and Bernie Grunman, who is the master engineer who mastered it, and now Chad Kassem, the person who put out this latest thing, this is the first and only time the original 3-track tape has been dug out of the vaults, and Bernie Grunman got it on his console and live mastered directly from the 3 tracks straight to his lathe, and without a generation of tape in between there. And I was kind of curious, how much of a difference is this going to make? But I didn't need to wait for this record because that was done in 1995 or something like that. And it was put out by Classic Records, which was owned by Michael Hobson, and he did this whole thing. Eventually, Michael Hobson wanted to get out of the Classic Records business and sold everything to Chad Kassem, including the metalwork. So he still had the stampers, and those had been not the stampers, right? But like the original, the metal. Yeah, the stampers, whatever. The metal parts that have been plated. And Chad sat on those for a while, but that was what was used here. So even if you got the tapes out of the vault today, which everybody was quick to tell you when this was announced, that there's no way that Columbia Records, which is now owned by Sony, there's no way you'd be allowed to do that. They're not getting that tape out to do anything with it. So this is probably the last time it would have ever been done. But even if you did do it today, the tape is 26 years older now. What difference that makes, who knows? In addition to acquiring the actual plated metalwork to make more of these records, if Chad wanted to, Chad also got the Clarity vinyl formulation, which again was a Classic Records deal. So they do the big announcement. We're coming out. The next UHQR is Miles Davis Kind of Blue. This is the reissue to end all reissues. Chad Kassem does a YouTube thing. He's got Bernie Grumman on. He's got Michael Hobson. They're talking about the history of it. They got Michael Ludwigs, who, if you're watching this, you probably know who that guy is. But if not, check him out. 45 RPM audiophile, I think is what his channel is called. That guy's awesome. And they said this is going to be the killer reissue. And it took a while to get out, and the reviews have been mixed because of some issues with the pressing quality. And I think that's a huge distraction from some of the great things about this. I've AB'd this, or ABC'd it, or ABCDE'd it. Okay, I have a bunch of versions of Kind of Blue. This is a very different sounding remix, remaster, whatever you want to call it, than any of the other versions that I have. And it's not like it's been like, EQ to like bass boost it. That was a complaint about the MoFi one. I like the MoFi reissue quite a bit, but a lot of people, their beef about it is it doesn't sound natural. It sounds like, someone wanted to make it sound good for, the Dr. Dre Beats era. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the way this sounds different is not that at all. The piano in particular, it's like one of these dumb audio sayings like, oh, a veil has been lifted. But I mean, it really does sound, the piano sounds way better on this than on any other version I have, including, some of the most sought after versions. The first issue stereo, the stereo promos, the whatever, you name it. The piano sounds awesome on this. What people are complaining about is some quality control issues with the actual vinyl. Ticks and pops and non-fill and distortion in blue and green. And, if you got one of those and you were bummed out and you were following this and everybody told you this was going to be the best thing ever and you got it and it wasn't the best thing ever for you, I don't want to take anything away from that experience except how bad it was for you. But I don't want to discount that experience. I do want to take away the experience. But if you're bummed about it, I'm bummed with you. I'm sorry. But I will say one thing that seems to be happening, unless you're an international customer, and that's a big like asterisk, and that's like a whole different landscape, and it's a lot harder to be collecting these things if you're living overseas than if you're living in the United States. But if you have the privilege of collecting these things in the United States, even Canada, I think is not as easy, but with acoustic sounds, that's pretty straightforward. I think if people are saying, hey, my album is noisy, I've got these ticks and pops, Analogue Productions, or Acoustic Sounds, is sending replacement copies. They're making people destroy the copies, which is a little weird. So there's some funny pictures that you can find out there of things people have done with it. Make a bowl, make a clock, saw it in half, blah, blah, blah. But it sounds like you can keep trying till you get a good one. And I think, it's probably worth it. And it's not a cheap record by any stretch of the imagination. But I think there is a difference in quality that could be there. My copy doesn't play perfect. There's a little, pop here and there. And I did have a problem at the end of Blue and Green, which is something else that I'm reading a lot of complaints about, that, this thing was supposed to be great, but my Blue and Green is all distorted. And as far as the ticks and pops go and the Blue and Green thing, I do think that was what put me over the top to make this video here, because my own personal experience with this, I think, might help some of you. So if you have like a stitching or non-fill, like a zzz sound, that's like straight up a defect, and there's no question about it. And you should send that back, and you should get a new one. And if you're in the United States, you probably won't have a problem. So good luck with that. Now, if it's just crackles, my experience with this record is that it has been the statickiest record I've ever played. And I have a lot of fancy new vinyl formula things. I've got the MoFi Super Vinyl, one step. I've got some of the old JVC Super Vinyl. I've got the Music Matters SRX thing. This thing has way more static than all that. And, just pulling it off the platter, sometimes I get like a big pop noise. Some of the pops that I hear when I play this, okay, so I'll hear like a big tick and think, oh man, like there's something wrong with the record. If I just lifted the needle and put it right back to where it was and play through, most of the time, most of the pops that I've heard, they don't repeat. It's just like a static discharge on the record, I guess. I don't know, but I mean, if it's damage to the record or it's a pressing issue, it should be, repeatable. All the pops should be in the same places. If the pops irritate you, it's still annoying. That doesn't mean that you have to settle for the idea like, oh, I guess this is just going to be a staticky vinyl formulation, and I have to deal with that. You don't, but it might not be a pressing problem. It could just be the choice of vinyl is a deal breaker for you. But people are recommending, wet cleaning and, different means of removing static. And sometimes that can feel a little silly, but I will say that on this one, it definitely can make a difference. And on mine, it did. I went from probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 pops per side to, 2 that seem to really be kind of on the record, maybe on the surface of the record. And again, it doesn't bother me because none of them are periodic. I don't get a tick, tick, tick every revolution. It's just like a tick and it's gone, and then I forget about it. If I had a bunch, it would be annoying. The Blue and Green thing is interesting because I also heard distortion, particularly in one spot. It's when Bill Evans comes back in after John Coltrane solo. And some of the loud chords he hits would cause my system to break up a little bit. And I thought, well, I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that before. So again, I dug out all the old versions and played it. And from the original stereo promo to the first, commercial US stereo pressing through like a 70s reissue on Columbia, that distortion was there in the same place every time. And so I thought, well, this is just, it's on the tape. But then I remembered a different random guy on Steve Hoffman forums asked me out of the blue about a year ago if I'd ever heard the 4-track reel-to-reel of Kind of Blue, and I hadn't. And so that person kindly sent me a recording of it. So I thought, oh, well, this is cool. I'll put on Blue and Green and hear for it there. And I put it on, and there was no distortion there. It's very dynamic. It goes from very, very quiet to very loud and kind of quiet again, but it didn't ever cause my system to break up. So then I thought, well, mastering a record from 3-track down to 2-track and then cutting it on the lathe to, make the lacquer, that's a different process than making a 2-track or 4-track tape copy as a master. So maybe maybe it is, about the vinyl mastering specifically and not a distortion on the original master tape. But I just got a new pair of speakers. I got a pair of Tecton Uru speakers. They just arrived the other day, and I was real surprised. My normal new equipment ritual is to spin some version of Kind of Blue, or a few of them, just to sort of get a feel for it. Same system that I just used, 4 days ago to listen to this, and I heard, oh yeah, there's the distortion, and I heard it on all the other ones. I put these new speakers on and ran it through my tube amplifier and my tube preamp instead of my tube preamp and then my old Pioneer integrated amplifier. So the turntable, the cartridge, the cables, the preamp are all the same. Tube amplifier and new speakers, and no distortion anymore, not a hint of distortion. So even my own system sometimes distorts with this record on blue and green if I have it set up a certain way, and I can play it where it doesn't distort. But when it does distort, any of the 40 copies or 50 copies of Kind of Blue I have it put on will also distort. So if the thing that's bumming you out about the UHQR Kind of Blue, or the thing that's preventing you from buying the UHQR Kind of Blue if you're interested, is the distortion on blue and green, I don't think you're going to find a different copy of the record in stereo that's not going to do that. Again, that doesn't mean you have to buy it. If this is just too much to you, you're pissed about it, it was too hyped, it comes in this ridiculous big box, which I didn't even bother to show to you, it's too expensive, it's $100, and you think the vinyl thing is dumb, and what's the point of using this if it's going to be staticky and all that. I get it. For me, this will probably be my go-to player copy, and it's replacing my like top secret down low MoFi Kind of Blue on super vinyl, which wasn't ever an official release. There were just some of those floating around, but this is going to be my go-to copy, pops and all. If you are interested in this and you want to check it out because of the Bernie Grumman mastering, get the Classic Records one. They're coming up on eBay all the time. They're on Discogs, wherever you buy records, because people are unloading those now because they were previously sought after before. But most people aren't clued into like the Steve Hoffman Forum's outrage chamber about this. And so the big news is that this is the killer ultimate reissue to end all ultimate reissues. And so the secondary market value of this same mastering, but on black vinyl from 1995, which I also have too, which sounds pretty similar, is a lot cheaper than it was 6 months ago. So maybe check that one out. You don't get the cool gatefold though. Again, if you have problems with this, if your record is just straight up messed up, if you know what non-fill sounds like, or you know the difference between a static pop and something, pressed into the grooves, I believe you. I'm sorry. I'm bummed. I wish it was perfect for everybody. But if you don't have a ton of different pressings of Kind of Blue, one thing that could be hard for you to appreciate is that this one really does sound very different. And especially if you're interested in Bill Evans' piano playing or Wynton Kelly's piano playing on Freddie Freeloader, you should try to find a way to listen to this mastering of it. All right, long video I never wanted to make, and now here we are almost half an hour later. So next time I'll be back with something a little more lighthearted. And at the end of the last video, I brought your attention to, did I get it? No. I brought your attention to a record that was hiding in the background. Challenge you to figure out what it was. So I got a new one today. Anyone recognize this? Let me know in the comments. As far as last time, what do we have? Benny Green, soul stirring. Benny Green, trombone. Jug on tenor sax. If you know the history of that, let me know. Who's Jug? Billy Roots, tenor sax. Sonny Clark on piano, Ike Isaacs on bass, and Elvin Jones on drums. Who do I got over here? Thanks for watching.